Today we are going to meet the king who was so fat that a knife disappeared in his belly. Ehud, the murder of the fat king, is the topic for today. Let's dive straight into it. Now, this story comes to us from Judges chapter 3, verses 12 through 30. And I must warn you, this story is extremely graphic. So if you are easily offended, please turn off this video right now. But if you love stories like this, then stay tuned because this story only gets crazier as it goes on. So the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of Eglon, king of Moab, who reigned over Israel for 18 years. Now, Eglon's name means mighty fortress, but he wasn't mighty at all. He was actually very fat. In fact, he was described as having fat that extended over his loins, which in those days was considered the mark of a truly wealthy man. Now, in those 18 years that Eglon had oppressed the children of Israel, they cried out to the Lord, and the Lord raised up for them a deliverer named Ehud, the son of Gera, a Benjamite, a left-handed man. Now, even though Ehud was a judge or a leader of Israel, we really don't know much about him except that he was left-handed. Now, this might seem trivial, being left-handed, but in those days, most people were right-handed. So it would have made Ehud stand out from the crowd. In fact, in those days, most swords were designed for a right-handed warrior. So when Ehud fought, he likely fought with a sword in his left hand and a shield in his right, the opposite way that most warriors fought. Anyway, the account says that Ehud made for himself a double-edged dagger and sharpened it. Now, before Ehud went to King Eglon, he sent a messenger to tell the king to come out alone to meet him. And the king thought this was probably easy tribute money coming to him. So he came out alone, just as Ehud had requested. Now, when Ehud saw that the king had come alone, he turned back, not wanting to kill the king in front of witnesses. So he said to his messenger, "Return, for I must hide my dagger until I have an excuse." And the messenger returned, and Ehud hid the dagger. Then Ehud went in front of the king and said, "I have something to say to you." And he motioned for the king to come into the gallery. The king followed him, thinking that he would be receiving some kind of tribute offering. But instead, Ehud pushed him into the bedroom and shut the door behind them. And here is where the story takes a turn for the worse. You see, the king was so fat that he could not rise. After pushing the king down, Ehud got on top of him and pulled out that double-edged dagger, and he plunged the entire dagger into the king's belly. It's important to note that this was a double-edged dagger, and also the passage says that he plunged it into his belly. So he plunged the dagger in from one side and it exited out the other side. Now, listen carefully to this next part because it gets even more disgusting. The passage says that the fat closed over the blade. Now, what does this mean? Well, you have Ehud on top of the king, and he stuck a sharp, double-edged dagger into the king's belly. And when he pulled it out, the fat around the king's belly button closed over the wound. This is why when someone has abdominal surgery, they have to have their belly button cut open, because if the skin is stretched over the incision, it won't heal properly. And this is exactly what happened to King Eglon. The fat around his belly button closed over the wound, effectively hiding the dagger inside of his stomach. And then the passage says that the king's feces flowed out. Oh, gross. Do you think you could get any more disgusted? Well, it gets worse. Verse 23 says that after the dagger was plunged into the king's belly, the servant on duty came to see what was taking so long. And Ehud came out with the dagger still in his hand and smeared feces on the servant's face. When the servant screamed in disgust and tried to wipe the feces off his face, Ehud killed him with the same dagger. After killing the servant, Ehud locked the doors, both to the bedroom and to the main palace doors, and went away while the king died a horrible and slow death. Then afterwards, when everything had settled down, Ehud gathered the children of Israel together and told them that God had delivered their enemies into their hands. And he told them to go out and strike the Moabites, just as God had commanded. Now, I want to take a minute to talk about a few things. First, if we look at Judges chapters 1 through 6, there is a pattern here of the children of Israel doing evil in the sight of the Lord, and then being delivered into the hands of oppressive kings or oppressors. And then the Lord raising up for them a deliverer or a judge to help them defeat the oppressor. This pattern repeats itself over and over again. And if you read the Bible, you'll find that this pattern repeats itself over and over again throughout history. Second, this passage shows us the importance of timing. You see, when Ehud first went to King Eglon, he didn't kill the king right away. Why? Because there were servants and guards around. Instead, he waited until he could have an opportunity to kill the king without anyone watching him. And he was willing to wait as long as it took. This teaches us that sometimes in life, you have to wait for the right moment to make your move. If you rush something, you can mess it up. Third, this passage tells us how to fight. As I mentioned earlier, Ehud was left-handed, and this would have made him an outlier in the culture at the time. But Ehud didn't complain about being different. Instead, he used it to his advantage. In fact, he learned how to fight despite his situation. Sometimes you have to learn how to fight with what you got. You can't always choose to be this or to be that. So learn to use what you have to your advantage. Fourth, let's talk about the king's stupidity. When Ehud sent a message to the king to come and meet him alone, why did the king agree? The answer is obvious. King Eglon was selfish and greedy, and when he heard that someone wanted to meet with him, he assumed that they had some kind of gift or tribute for him. He was too stupid to realize that he was walking into his own death. Fifth, this passage tells us that no matter how powerful or wealthy or strong a person thinks they are, no matter how many guards they have around them, no matter how fat they are, God can deal with them and remove them whenever He wants. No one is safe.